How's it going, everyone? This is Kevin. Today I want to bring along with me to test out the differences of the full frame versus APS-C video mode of the Sony A7 IV. So let's jump right into it. So I recently made a video about the depth of field comparisons between the full frame versus APS-C mode and photo mode of the A7 IV, and I thought it'd be great to also compare it with the APS-C mode and full frame in video mode, because a lot of you guys tend to still want to use obviously your APS-C censored lenses, since the A7 IV has a 4K 60 crop, and well, that's something beneficial to have. And with making that video, I wanted to kind of also just kind of split it apart, because it didn't make sense to have both videos together, because it would just make the video too long. So I just wanted to have now the video mode of the APS-C versus full frame to see, well, how good it is. So I'm going to be doing similar tests to the video that I did, and if you haven't watched it, make sure to click wherever it appears, the card thingy, to just go check it out so you can see what I'm going to do. But basically I'm going to do a similar test when it comes down to what I did on that video for the depth of field, the wrench comparison, and see what we can find out to see if, you know, there's major quality difference or not. So for the first test, I want to test out the depth of field and the bokeh kind of action between the full frame and APS-C mode. So we're going to get a couple footage examples and see what we can find out. Now, for the second test that I want to do is just basically see how much range we can add to basically our shots from the APS-C mode, because it's going to crop in, and if it's going to kind of take away a little bit of the quality or not. Well, so it's going to be kind of like mixing the third test to a certain degree, but the third test will be on its own in a bit as well. So what I'm going to do is just I'm going to have my wife just stand in a section. Well, I'll shoot at 150 millimeters, and then as well in APS-C mode to see how much more it adds to it, and then that way we can kind of see that comparison between them both. Oh, editor Kevin here. Sorry to interrupt, but we had to reshoot that one section because for whatever reason it was just very shaky and just kind of like blurry, because maybe the wind, I'm not really sure, because that was the only times that it happened. But we're going to use this footage to compare the 150 millimeter at full frame and then at APS-C mode to kind of get that extra punch. So you're going to see it this way. It's kind of going to be about the same style of what I was trying to hopefully do, but you know, here it is. And now we're going to do the final test just to kind of shoot at the equivalent of each focal length to each other to see if there's a major difference in the quality or not, and see how well it looks. And we're done with the testing for now. You've seen the footage already, but I'm gonna go home and review it and get out of this wind, as you can tell, with this nice, awesome hairdo that I'm getting out here. And yeah, I'll see you guys in a bit once I get home to review the footage and give you my final thoughts and, you know, do what we do. And we're done with all the footage, and you got to see pretty much all the comparison. And finally, I got to see, well, the kind of more in depth of what I wanted to check out before I gave you my final thoughts. So one of the things that I noticed straight off the bat is just, it does get a little bit noisier from the APS-C mode if I really crop into like just seeing like up closer into the footage of it, but nothing that is like too drastic that is just like horrible that you couldn't use. I'm assuming, you know, most of the time with the APS-C mode, it's just, I guess because of the compression of like kind of getting cropped in, it just makes it work that way for the lower light kind of capabilities or just more grain into it. I'm not really sure the scientific reason behind it. That's just something that I noticed myself. I honestly like more the cleaner look of the full frame. It just seemed a lot just smoother and cleaner and everything like that. So something that I personally like better, but if you have to kind of use the APS-C mode, I don't think it's a horrible thing to be able to use in case you're needing to, you know, punch it in a little bit further if you're farther away with this one versus kind of like in the photography, which I noticed like on the photo in the last video that I talked about it, it's just, I think you're better off just cropping in. Obviously with this one, I feel like it'll probably be easier just to do the APS-C mode for the cropping in with the video. I didn't really test out, you know, too much of cropping in post, but from what I can tell, it's just, you know, I probably just would stick to the APS-C mode. It just probably saved me a headache and a half than just zooming in post or something like that. But other than that, I honestly don't believe that it would be a bad idea to keep some of your APS-C sensor like lenses, because if you already have them, might as well put them to good use. But I think also with like the way that the APS-C censored lenses, if you see these, like this is the full frame, it has a lot more, you know, it's a wider thing. So if it's cropping in on that, I feel like you'll still get a better quality compared to what you would get from an APS-C censored lens. So I personally kind of think that if you're already going into a full frame camera like the Sony A7 IV, even with a 60 crop, I still think that you should probably invest in your full frame lenses. The only time I think it's maybe fine is if there's not an equivalent style of price range in the APS-C lineup of lenses compared to the full frame, they might as well just kind of keep it that way itself. But other than that, I would kind of just, you know, think about if you're going full frame, might as well go with full frame lenses, because even if you're shooting 4K 24 frames per second like how we did with this video, you might shoot 120 frames per second slow motion with the A7 IV, and you might want to have the full frame lenses, you know, so that you don't lose as much quality, because that one's only 1080p, even though it's 10-bit color. And as well, I mean, you can obviously have your zoomed in for when it comes down to the 4K 60 crop, but you just plan accordingly. That's what I've talked about before in a previous video when I talked about how the 4K 60 crop wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. But that's just my personal preference when it comes down to if you're going to be in a full frame camera, might as well invest in some full frame lenses. Despite of them being more expensive, you kind of already chose to go the full frame route, so might as well dive into it 110%. That's all that I have in mind with that. That's kind of the comparison that I want to do. Hopefully this helps you out to know if you should keep your APS-C censored lenses when it comes down to doing APS-C mode with the A7 IV, or if you just, you know, maybe invest a little bit further into the full frame lens lineup to kind of use your camera to the fullest potential. Doesn't hurt to do the APS-C mode because you're not losing as much quality from what I could tell, but might as well get the full beneficial, you know, whole 9 yards over here to get the best bang for your buck. But with all that said and done, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to like and subscribe, share this video with a friend. I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.